welcome back to episode 11 of Living in Infinity. Um, we got a good list of topics for this one, but I think we're going to start with Twitter's rebrand to X. So, Valak, you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, lots of controversy, I guess, on this topic on Twitter. Lots of people hate the rebrand. A lot of people love it. Personally, I'm a bit somewhere in the middle, but basically, now that Elon has acquired Twitter and they're starting to make a lot of changes to the platform, he's begun the transition of completely ditching the Twitter brand and adopting the new X brand. And just to quote what he has said specifically for the logic behind this, he tweeted out Twitter was acquired by X Corp both to ensure freedom of speech and as an accelerant for X, the Everything app. This is not simply a company renaming itself, but doing the same thing. The Twitter name made sense when it was just 140 characters going back and forth like birds tweeting, but now you can post almost anything, including several hours of video. In the months to come, we will add comprehensive communications and the ability to conduct your entire financial world. The Twitter name does not make sense in that context, so we must bid adieu to the bird. Um, and I generally agree with that logic. Like, I don't think the Twitter brand makes sense for what he's wanting to build with the X app. And just to give some background on this too, X has been Elon's plan for like 20 years, basically. Originally with PayPal, or PayPal started out as X.com, and they got acquired and merged with another company, and they rebranded everything to PayPal. But the original plan for X.com was basically to be able to provide every kind of financial service that you would need within one company. So anything from like peer-to-peer payments, like sending money to your friends, to getting loans, to banking, mortgages, literally everything just wrapped up into one financial company that's just easily accessible on your phone or computer. Um, and so he's always had this plan and never really got around to doing it because of the new PayPal management kind of adopted a new plan for what they wanted to do with the company. But now that he's acquired Twitter and also acquired a massive user base along with that, like 500, 600 million people, that's kind of his way of accelerating adoption for the Everything app. And so my only, I guess, rebuttal to why he's or to the rebrand is like it just seems too soon in my mind. Like Twitter is still just Twitter. Like it's just there hasn't been like any drastic changes as far as like additional features outside of what Twitter used to do. Other than like, I mean, there's stuff that we talked about in the last podcast, like revenue sharing and now being able to post longer videos and longer tweets and stuff like that. But there's no financial aspects yet. There's no video calling, stuff like that they plan to add. And so I think it would have made more sense to hold off on the full rebrand until the app is built out a little bit more and it makes more sense. But what's your opinion, I guess, on the rebrand?
Um, I just have two thoughts on it. It seems risky. Twitter at the moment seems to be running really great, and I personally really like it. So, um, yeah, it's just kind of like a why fix something that's not broken, type of thing to me. And then also, um, a platform where like all of our financials are done and just like kind of our whole lives are attached to this one thing seems to be kind of vulnerable to some sort of future like dystopian like government use. But I mean, that's pretty hypothetical. So yeah, I'm just at the moment, it's just neither here nor there, for me really.
Hmm. That brings up an interesting thought. Like, imagine it was Zuckerberg trying to build the Everything app. Like, people would be extremely strong against that just because
Yeah.
of Facebook's history of using or taking user data and censorship and everything like that. So it's like, while I love the idea of the app, I agree with the concerns of like just having one central location for basically your entire online existence for the most part. But if anyone was to build it, or if there's anyone that I would want to build it, it would be Elon. I think he's kind of done everything. Like that was his whole purpose for acquiring Twitter originally was um, to end the censorship, the data sharing with governments, stuff like that. And so I guess it is interesting that I haven't seen any like major complaints from people regarding that aspect of like building an all-in-one app for everything. But I feel like if Zuckerberg were to do it or Google or any of these other companies, there probably would be a lot more people up in arms against the idea.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into something that I've been thinking about here recently. I've been curious as to why I'm so kind of like pro Elon, comfortable with his big moves that he tends to make. Uh, and I think a lot of it can be tied to a tweet, not a tweet, but he always talks a lot about like repopulation, and he's always pushing for an increase in the population at a time when most other leaders um, are advocating for like uh, for a population decrease. And so I think that to me shows he's like on a fundamental level pro-human, and um, that uh, just yeah, I view that as a very good thing, and kind of it shows me where his intentions are.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll be really interested to see what kind of structure this is going to be for particularly the financial aspects. Like I think transforming Twitter into like a really solid social platform is one thing and it's kind of and like comparing it to what his full plan is, that's kind of the lower hanging fruit of the plan. Like the really like where a lot of the main value comes into this platform, I think, is the financial aspects. Like that could, if successful, be a massive, massive company. And he's even said himself in an interview, I remember that he believes X Corp has the potential of um basically controlling like up to I think he said like uh, half of the financial industry. So like they would have the feature base that could support up to like a very large percentage of our entire financial industry. So everything from banking to loans, stock investing, and that's very very aspirational, obviously. But I'm really curious to see what kind of structure this would be because um, and Elon talks about this a lot too. Our banking system right now is just like incredibly, incredibly outdated. It's it's slow. I mean, we're really the only country that still does this. Like if you want to send bank transfers in Europe, for example, um, it's almost instant. Whereas here, if you want to do a wire transfer or like an ACH transfer or something, it takes multiple days, which I is mind blowing to me. Like it's the 21st century and we're still using this extremely antiquated system that kind of is holding our entire financial industry together. So I don't think that like what he's going to be building is going to be built obviously on the same technology that our financial industry is already using. It's going to be something completely different. Um, and I hope with that comes like more protection for individual users and their funds. Like there's no way that people can get their funds locked up for certain reasons, or like they can have every transaction that they do tracked. So yeah, it'd just be really interesting to see how exactly this is going to look. But
Yeah,
again, but
there would need to be some sort of like long term plan in place for having those protections there, because I think what you see is a lot of institutions like they start out effective and liberties are ensured, but then as it gets tossed down the line of generations, it becomes more vulnerable to like whatever dystopian totalitarianism stuff. And I think that's the fear with me. It's like, okay, it's good now when Elon's here, but what happens 50 years from now when he's gone? And then now you have everything centralized, and that just seems like a pretty easy cherry that can be picked for whatever purposes.
Yeah, I agree. And two, Elon, it seems like Elon just has this like desire to go up against every industry that you technically aren't supposed to go up against just because there's so many powers against you. Like the automotive industry, there's over 100 years of history in that industry. And he's just like, yeah, I'm going to do this completely new thing, this new way of building cars and just completely overtake that. Um, and then also just like our energy infrastructure going up against big oil, basically, that's never been a smart decision. And now with X, he wants to go up against the social media industry and the financial industry at the same time. So I'm just,
Yep,
it's a
it
bit
is. That's crazy.
worrisome. Like, what is our government's reaction going to be to someone trying to build a new banking system that they presumably aren't going to have control over? I don't see that ending well, or them having a very positive reaction to that. I think part of the reason why we haven't updated our banking industry is just because our government and the banks can have full control over our funds.
Yeah. Um, hmm, that is interesting. I wonder how that affected the PayPal, because see, you're talking about this. If he brought this up to the rest of the PayPal team or whatever back in the day, like, it's weird they didn't go this route. Um, Especially that early. I mean, that
Yeah.
would have just been, I don't know, it would have secured that company as like the company within the financial institution or the financial realm of our country. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder if like they got bribed off by banks, or what happened there,
Yeah. I don't
or if it was just
remember.
too early for them to conceptualize what that we was talking about.
Yeah. I think it was partly just because it was too early, but I don't remember the full in-depth details of the PayPal story, but I just remember from some comments that Elon has made, like the reason that he left PayPal and choose to sell his full stake in the company was because the platform was just going in a different direction to what he wanted. Um, and now if you um, now he'll say like the PayPal is just like an awful platform and it's like so far off from what he was originally planning on building. And I can attest to that. I've used PayPal for years for accepting payments for like some for business stuff that I would do, and the amount of corruption on that website is absurd to me, absurd. And there's not enough people talking about it too. Like
Can you
the amount
yeah?
of
Can you
times that,
explain a little
yeah,
further?
like the amount of times that, like, just for, so when I use it for my e-commerce businesses, the amount of times that we would have large chunks of money held against our will for them wanting to like ask for whatever kind of verification that they needed to transmit our payments, and then they would just hold it for months on end after submitting everything. Like it just never made any sense as far like we were completely compliant with everything, gave them all the information that they needed, and there were still times where like I had an account that was just like completely locked. So I couldn't accept new payments. The money that I had in there was locked for I think it was like 180 days. Um, and so and there's no way to get it out either. And I'm not the only one that's had this experience. Like anyone within the e-commerce industry that uses PayPal consistently, like this is widely known that it is just an awful platform. The odds of your money getting locked up are like very high. Um, and so, yeah, I think if Elon knew everything that was going on within PayPal right now, he'd definitely not be too pleased with that. But yeah, I think another thing too that we can kind of talk about briefly, like we're just regarding like the decentralization of money. I'm I'm a bit surprised that there's still very little crypto adoption. And I've come to the belief now almost that like maybe there's just like something systemically wrong with what crypto is trying to do. Like you would think after, I mean, I don't remember when Bitcoin was created, but it was over a decade ago. You would think that after all of this time, that more people would be consistently building on crypto to build out reliable infrastructure and everything, and it would become way more widely adopted than it is. But we're still kind of in this weird area of like crypto just kind of being this like people still think it's scammy, you know? And so maybe I'm begun to wonder like maybe crypto isn't the solution that we need for a new financial system. Maybe it's something entirely different that we haven't really like thought of yet.
Um, yeah. Two thoughts on that. Hmm, well, just one for the moment. I know personally, like the whole SBF thing. I mean, yeah, that just definitely tainted cryptocurrency for sure. Even in my mind, and I was a big. I mean, I'm not gonna say I was like a big believer in it, but like it seemed like a good idea, and I thought it was gonna. Yeah, you were gonna see a steady increase of adoption for sure. But
Mhm.
I think that that played a large role in the deterrence we're seeing, and yeah, maybe it's just a lack of understanding of what it is on, people like, yeah, just a widespread misunderstanding of what it is. Because I guess at first it does seem scammy, like regardless of the SBF stuff, just the concept of it, probably seems weird to people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anyone that I talk to that's not super familiar with crypto, like they will just immediately assume that it's a scam. It's like fake money, which if you understand the technicals behind it, that's not really the case. Like everything it makes sense from an infrastructure standpoint in my mind. But what I struggle to see is I think the biggest thing right now is like the user experience of crypto is still just awful.
Yeah.
Like it's really the only company that I guess is providing something that is super easy and simple and makes sense for people is Coinbase. Um, Outside of that, it's like the adoption. There's a lot of hoops and stuff people have to go through. It's a big learning curve for people to adopt crypto.
Yeah, especially on the tax end of things, I've learned that lesson the hard way. Like if you buy crypto, transfer it, good luck. Good luck trying to
Yeah,
and make money off of it that you have to report for tax, income tax. Yeah. God bless you on your journey there. It's a pain.
yeah. And so I don't know. I'd say like something I'm keeping in mind is usually the first iteration of a technology is not the one that receives like mass adoption. And so maybe cryptocurrency and blockchain technology in general, I think maybe it provides like a really strong foundation and idea of what the next like version of our financial system should be, but maybe we won't explicitly use blockchain like in its current state. Maybe whatever we're going to build next is much better than blockchain technology and will actually be what we use to kind of, you know, update our financial system.
Yeah. I don't know what this would look like, but like to me, it needs to be something that includes some sort of stability. Um, because, like a big argument for crypto, especially Bitcoin, is like it's marketed as like a secure alternative to fiat currency, which like in theory it is, but then you look at its trading history and it's just prone to these huge drops. And that's yeah, I think it's like probably misunderstanding of what it is, and then also just or lack of understanding what it is, and then also you just if you're interested in it at all and see those big swings and like you're just a normal everyday person who can't afford those drops, yeah, you're not gonna buy it. So uh, it,
Right.
so
And I guess too,
the next
go
generation
ahead.
of whatever crypto, if it can do such a thing, that would be a huge
Yeah.
win.
Well, I guess there's stable coins that we have that are supposedly like pegged to the dollar, and so they never really go up or down in value. But um, there's a lot of scrutiny against stable coins just for the lack of transparency on how they're operated, like what exactly, like are they actually backed one to one to the dollar? Like these companies that are creating stable coins, like do they actually have what the money that they say that they do? Um, so I don't know. I think I'd be curious to see what's gonna happen, especially too with like kind of bringing it back to X. Like I don't literally everything is tied to our existing financial system. Like there's how exactly are you going to completely overturn that and start something new that is just as easy to adopt that is already integrated with our current banking system. Like right now, the only way to interact with crypto is for you to use your normal dollars to purchase crypto, and then you're kind of on the network there. But, how do we kind of transition all of our existing money to this new system? That's something that I think is going to take decades and it's going to be like a unanswered question for the time being. But yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that topic alone. But I'm really curious to see how X is going to integrate finance into their system and what people's reaction is going to be to it as well. Like right now, people that use Twitter, no one has asked for banking on Twitter, but Elon has this grand vision for the app, and so I'm really curious to see if people are actually going to want to use it and actually, you know, not only use Twitter for tweeting and everything, but also video calling, texting, uploading videos, sending money, banking, everything. So yeah, I'm super excited for it, but I think it's going to take years to play out.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that way for sure. Do we want to use this as this opportunity to segue into the SBF issue?
Yeah. I was doing some reading on the SBF situation beforehand because some news came out recently that prosecutors had dropped charges against him, and a lot of people were tweeting that he was walking free, which is, after actually diving into it, that's not the case. But yeah, this article, the CNBC article here, talks about prosecutors dropping some charges against the FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried, which, if you aren't familiar with the story, I won't go into all the details of it. Basically, he blatantly committed fraud by using customer funds on FTX, billions of dollars worth, to provide loans to himself, to other people, and to his own companies without any discretion to the users uh, at all. So basically, using people's money without their permission to loan to others for whatever reason that it might be, billions of dollars. Just blatant fraud. There was no way to there was no question about it. He 100% did. And so what I've read about the news that had just come out was that the federal prosecutors are dropping a campaign finance charge against him, which I guess what that means is basically he had a history of donating a lot of money to government campaigns and lobby. I think it was tens of millions of dollars. I think upwards of like 40 or 50 million in total.
I had read he
Um,
was like the second biggest donor to the DNC.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and people were basically saying that he was doing this to kind of lobby against like the illegal stuff that he was doing that would kind of help him get they would provide him whatever benefits needed to get free of the charges. But so I don't really know exactly the reason why they dropped these charges other than just blatant corruption. But
There
basically it says, go ahead.
the reason that I saw was they didn't want to step on the Bahamas toes. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, they said because
that's what I saw.
that's where the fraud occurred. That was their issue to deal with or something.
Yeah, which I don't understand all the legality behind that, but, I guess the main point to take away from this was that, at least that I took away, was a lot of the headlines and stuff are people saying that he's walking 100% scot-free after everything that he did, which does not seem to be the case for me. He's still open to a lot of fraud charges that are basically undeniable. I think his court hearings and stuff are later this year, but that charge that they just dropped alone, the campaign finance charges, that supposedly would have added up to like another 12 years to his sentence. So that's like a pretty big charge that they're dropping. And I don't know why exactly they needed to drop the charges for to not interfere with the Bahamas, but if it is some sort of corruption because of the donations that he's made, then it's just kind of completely blatant in your face corruption that they are not trying to hide whatsoever.
Yeah. Um. hmm. Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like this is one of those topics lately that I've been seeing on Twitter where there's like definitely a possibility that there's corruption, but because of like lack of time and resources on my part, I can't figure out if it's actually there or not. Um, and so I'm just torn on it. Like it definitely seems fishy, but it could not be. Um,
Right. Because I think um, they wanted to extradite him from the Bahamas, it seems. And the issue that the Bahamas had was they wanted the US to drop the charges, or they wanted the federal prosecutors to drop the charges regarding the um, unlawful campaign contributions in order for them to extradite him. And so I don't know if there's actually like a logical reason for them wanting to do that, but regardless, if he did actually make all these unlawful campaign donations, which he clearly did, why does that need to be dropped? Like and especially if it's going to add that much time to his sentence on top of all the other fraud charges that he has, like I don't understand it. So I think to me it seems I lean more towards the corruption side than there being like an actual logical
yeah,
explanation for this.
yeah. I think with the context of just the time we're in right now, um yeah, that seems like a safe bet.
Mhm. Um, I guess tying into that corruption, there was recently or yesterday actually, a Twitter thread that was released by um, Jim Jordan, who is a government representative, and they're calling it the Facebook files, which is basically blatant proof that Facebook censored a bunch of stuff on their platform because of the Biden administration. I know you said you kind of read through this thread about what had happened, so do you kind of want to go over it real
Um,
quick?
yeah, basically what it is there were just some internal emails from, I guess he's a higher up exec within Facebook. Um, I mean, clearly he's important because he's getting emails directly from the Biden administration. But yeah, basically just Biden was asking for censorship on some COVID related issues, some COVID related posts, and um, yeah, and then Facebook complied. I was surprised. There seemed to be more internal struggle within Facebook of whether or not to comply than I would have suspected. I thought they would have
Mhm.
like, I mean, I partly believe they just would have done it on their on on their own anyway. But yeah, there seemed to be some like real questions from employees within the company. But regardless, they still censored it. And so yeah, it's another, yeah, just another huge issue of our free speech getting taken away from us. So
Mhm. And I thought, it's just crazy to see that, like, there's always been conspiracy about these social platforms, censoring stuff and, uh, interacting with our government to kind of decide what should be posted and what shouldn't be allowed to stay on the platform. But within the past, 6 to 8 months, basically ever since Elon bought Twitter, now all of this stuff is 100% proven and put into the spotlight. Um, and it really just makes you question, like, what else, is going on that we don't really know about with these platforms. Um, and it's even scarier to me that there's no, there hasn't been anyone that's like punished for like these actions. I don't know if I would assume like this is illegal, right? Like unconstitutional. But with all the Twitter exposure, nothing really ever came from that, and now Facebook too. So it's like, where do we go from here if like all this stuff is being put under the spotlight, but nothing is really happening?
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why that is. I really don't even know what's supposed to happen. I would imagine this is an issue that Congress would need to pursue. Uh, hmm. Yeah, I don't know like the legal precedent for who does what.
Mhm.
I don't think anything like this has ever been exposed. So, um, but certainly there should be more going on than what there is.
Yeah. What's that saying? Sunlight is the best medicine or whatever. So I guess that's kind of the situation here. Like really all we can do is just make as many people known about it or make as many people aware of it as possible. So that way it's more people discussing on what should be done. And I would imagine this won't be like this is probably just the first of many that we're gonna see regarding the Facebook files. I mean, yeah, even in the tweet he says part one. So there's gonna be a lot more that's gonna come out. Um and I guess like I don't know, it makes me wonder like has this happened with previous administrations too? Because I think all we've seen so far from Facebook and Twitter was like it was just the Biden administration that we've seen actual evidence from. But I'm really curious, like, how long has this been going on, and we just haven't really known?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a fair question. Um, yeah, man, I don't know. I did see an interesting snippet of Mark Zuckerberg talking about this issue. Um, his position was he was just kind of playing the role of like, I just was doing like the best I could. I was just doing what I thought was like ultimately the best decision in terms of whether or not to censor people and like abide, uh, and like, uh, follow the request from the Biden administration. Um, I don't really have a lot of experience listening to Zuckerberg. I think typically, like, I would think of him as somebody that's disingenuous and probably a little like elite, but he seemed genuine when he was saying these things. But I mean, I don't know. It's either it's either he's lying or he just has a fundamentally different view of the importance of free speech than I do. Which either way, I'm not a fan of what he's saying, but I did think that was interesting. Uh,
Yeah, that's the vibe that I get from Zuckerberg as well. I don't think he's blatantly lying or trying to manipulate the public on his, I guess, stance on free speech and the way he operates his companies. I think he probably genuinely does believe that he was doing the best thing in that situation. I mean, when you run a company at that scale and you have the presidential administration reaching out to you directly saying that they want certain actions taken on your website, like me in that position, I don't know how I would respond either. Like with everything, all the noise that's going on regarding COVID specifically, like, we don't no one knew what's right and what's wrong, and so I don't I think
You
just kind of
know,
viewing it from, like, a human perspective, like, I can't say that, I think he was acting in, like, a maniacal way, but, yeah, like you said, maybe he just has very different fundamental views on free speech than, what we do.
yeah. And, it's, uh, even though he may not have had evil intentions, it, okay, so if that's true, like, okay, so like I don't have like any ill intentions towards the guy if that's the case. But that being said, it's like it's clear to me that due to his position and due to his mistakes made in that scenario, like it's clear to me he does not need to be in the position that he's in. So I guess that's my final take at the moment on it.
Yeah.
It's
I
kind of like I have the same feelings towards Jack Dorsey. Like you hear him talk, and I mean, and I've heard Jack speak less than I have Zuckerberg, but like based on his friendship with Lex and Elon, like he can't really like obviously there's something decent about the guy. So it's like, okay, so it's like, yeah, maybe he's not evil, but he still doesn't need to be where he was.
Yeah. I've heard less from Jack Dorsey as well compared to Zuckerberg, but what I do remember was he made some comments like, he's been relatively transparent regarding all the stuff that happened with the Twitter files, and some of the comments that he made were basically him saying that a lot of the stuff that happened with Twitter and the mismanagement and the censorship was a bit out of his control. Um, and sorry if there's background noise, by the way. They're doing yard work outside. But yeah, basically the company had just gotten so big and so bureaucratized that he didn't really have the control that he needed to prevent these things from happening, which is understandable to an extent. But like you said, if this stuff is happening and you're the CEO of the company, it's your company, like
Yeah.
maybe you should just not be in that position.
Yeah, there's kind of two core issues there. It's like, A, you know, this is America. Free speech is like the hill to die on. If there's anything you're gonna take a stand for, it's gonna be free speech. And oh gosh, dang it, second point left my mind. Oh, the okay, it's Jocko Willink's extreme ownership idea. It doesn't matter why you couldn't get done what needed to be done as the leader of a company. The bottom line is you're the leader. So
Right.
whatever failings there were, it's on you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's like you can make as many excuses as you want, but yeah, at the end of the day, it is your job to do that. And so I guess in a way, Zuckerberg is kind of admitting indirectly that, maybe he's not fit to run this company in a way that, it should be ran regarding free speech. And yeah, and other thing with it too is like it's really hard to I feel like the the the, the laws regarding censorship and stuff with social media are kind of blurred. Like it's not very explicit regarding, should a government be able to take down certain things? Or I guess that it is explicit. Like you should really just be like Elon. He calls himself a free speech absolutist, meaning like take it to the actual extreme. Like basically anything that is legal should be allowed to be said on the platform. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like a really weird gray area with this kind of stuff.
Yeah. We need to define what a social media platform is. I think that's the issue. Like, is it a private company? Um, or is it the public square?
Mm,
Um, I think that would help us figure out the role of censorship. I mean, obviously, I think regardless of what it is, it should be there. Free speech should be allowed no matter what. But that would be a helpful decision to make. Uh, but either way, you know, uh, if there is an administration, like let's say it is determined to be like a private company, okay, so it receives pressure from an administration to censor things. Um, that just doesn't sit well with me anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, unless they're right. Like let's say they were right about COVID, then yeah, sure, it's fair to have that campaign to like cut out the wrong information. But I would assume in most circumstances, if an administration is trying to silence a group of people, it's probably for their benefit and not the people's. So
Yeah. But even if this information was blatantly wrong, it's not illegal to say things that are wrong? So that's another aspect of it as well. Like, who is the who? Because if you try to explicitly say what's right and wrong, then that means somebody has to be the arbiter of truth, basically. And who that should be is a completely other question. So personally, I kind of agree with Elon's stance of should just be a free speech absolutist and let the people decide for themselves on what's right and what's wrong, regardless of who's posting the information and what's being said, because otherwise you're giving the power of truth to somebody else entirely.
yeah, that's a great point for sure. Yeah, there should be like yeah, you're right. There should be no silencing efforts whatsoever. It should be okay. Like let's say, in this instance of COVID, the government's right and everybody who's and everybody else is wrong. Like, okay, so the appropriate response is from the government, like, okay, here's what the counter arguments towards us are, and here's why they're wrong. And then that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with Twitter's community notes feature?
kind of.
So basically, community notes is a way for anyone that signs up for it can contribute to community notes. And so basically, let's say for example, somebody posts a tweet that includes whatever information about it. Like for sake of example, maybe it's like COVID statistics or something. Anyone that's a part of the community notes platform can fact check that tweet, and basically the fact checking is done. It's community sourced, so people can suggest, I guess like suggest additional information that could be added to this tweet, or to make it either like to basically fact check it, and then people can anyone that's a part of the community notes program can vote on these different um, suggestions that should be made. And so I don't know, it's not exactly that simple. I'm probably you know wrong about some of the details, but I know they've basically created some sort of fully open source algorithm. By the way, that they've created some sort of algorithm that anyone can kind of suggest improvements to a tweet, and then people can vote on it. And if it reaches a certain threshold, then like if people enough people collectively vote like, okay, this is the true statistic, then it will add a note to that tweet saying, you know, this tweet is wrong and the actual statistic is blah blah blah. And so it basically provides a way for the people, the community to decide or to contribute in a way that helps information be more accurate. And I'm sure there's probably like some level of manipulation that could be done with that, but I think it's at least a step in the right direction, and allows for like a more, um, I don't know the word that I'm trying to think of here, but it just allows for more accurate information to be posted, because you know that if you're sending out a tweet that includes some statistics, there's going to be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be fact checking you. So you better make sure that you have it right?
Yeah, yeah, I like that, especially in uh from the context of like I feel like it's hard to get just accurate statistics. Not so much because of like manipulation. There's just I don't know. There's a lot of ways to like collect data, and so you don't know if the data you're getting is even accurate. And so no, I think the more input I can receive, question never go. But like demand statistics, the better, for sure.
Yeah. And I would be really it'd be really cool if this community notes feature gets a lot more traction among the users, and then we kind of see similar things be adopted across other platforms. Um, I would say that's a bit more unlikely just because we know the history of censorship with Facebook and YouTube even as well. But I guess that's just another advantage for Twitter becoming the most popular and widely used social platform, is that it's just the best place to get accurate information, and you don't have to worry about censorship. There's just, you know, that everything that you're reading on there has the potential to be fact checked by other people, and so it just kind of, I guess it'd be the most reliable place to go for interaction and communication with others.
Yeah. At least it'll be like, okay, so maybe it won't, like, maybe it won't necessarily be the most accurate place. I mean, it most likely will, but, like, let's say it's not. At least it'll be the most, like, genuine place,
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think so. Let's see what other topics that we had here. I think the last one really is, uh, I guess we could talk about aliens to wrap things up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Um, yeah, there's apparently like a whistleblower that has been testifying in Congress regarding um, evidence of UFOs and aliens that the government is like keeping from the public, basically. And I think their goal with this is they would like for the public to be made aware of what the information that the government has regarding aliens. And so, if you've been on Twitter within the past couple of days, I'm sure you've seen lots of tweets regarding basically people saying there's undeniable proof of aliens, and there's people testifying in Congress that aliens do exist and the government knows. Um, I've done a little bit of research. I'm not like super familiar with all of the details that were discussed on this, but um, to me, it still seems a bit sketchy. Like there was no explicit proof that was given by this whistleblower. He basically has just said that there are other people that have seen direct remnants of non-human biologicals, is what they're calling it. So basically, pieces of an alien from like a crash site. So there's just non-human life forms, and so he didn't say who these people were. And then when asked like on more details about the situation, he just said there's certain things that you can't talk about in a public setting, and so it just seems very fishy to me. I don't know why there can't just be transparency on all of this stuff, and like why bring a whistleblower into Congress if he's not actually disclosing any explicit proof. So, I mean, it just seems very weird to me. Have you done much looking into it, or?
No, just because I just from the brief, um, bit that I have, yeah, I just see that it's pretty inconclusive, and still there's just, like, even, like, the legitimacy of the claims are still up for debate and stuff, so, I'll let it get sorted out a little bit more, and then I'll jump in. I did see a interesting tweet, like, people were asking, like, why right now is it getting brought up, kinda bringing in the, like, some sort of, like, conspiracy theory aspect to it, like, it's kinda just meant to distract us from other issues. Um, yeah, that could be going on, I guess. So I don't know. Haven't just been paying too much attention to it.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is like assuming that aliens do exist and they have the capability of traveling billions of miles across space to reach Earth. If they have that technology, how are they just going to crash on Earth? You know, like that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And
That's a good
then,
point.
yeah. And also like like if they, all the UFO sightings and stuff, I mean, they're notorious for just being like awful camera quality. There's never been like actually good shots of it.
Yeah.
Um, And I just think, like, if they do have this technology, if they wanted to be seen, then they would be seen. It's not like we're just, like, catching an alien off guard. Like,
Mhm.
there's simply no way that if they had the capability of traveling this far, that they would just blatantly or accidentally get spotted by some people or, like, happen to crash. Like, it doesn't make any sense in my head at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are all good points. And like the other thought I have is why would they, like, how could their interactions with humans be solely contained to our government, which like seems to be the case? If they're just kind
Mm,
of like randomly coming in and out of Earth, coming to and from Earth, like you think other people outside the government would have stuff to say and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw this really interesting image, yesterday. It was a heat map of the globe for reported UFO sightings, and the US was just absolutely lit up because that's where all the reports are coming from. And then every other country across the entire globe, there was like tiny little lights on all of them. So it's like everything is just coming from the US. So what does that say about us? Like, are we just, or is it just like lots of crazy and conspiratorial people in our country? Or like, why would the aliens only come to the US as opposed to everywhere else in the world? Like, it just, it doesn't make sense to me at all.
No.
So I think, I mean, personally, if I had to guess, like aliens probably do exist, but as far as actually seeing any evidence or like fully conclusive evidence, we're still far off from that. I've yet to see anything that's actually very reliable on that aspect, and so I'm still kind of back to the. I'm now more skeptical of claims than anything. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. I guess the boy who cried alien. Like, there's just been so many people that have said that they've seen things and they can never actually back it up. So I just anytime I see something regarding aliens now, I pretty much just automatically dismiss it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. And I think I'll probably be in that boat for a while.
Yeah. Um, well, I think that's about everything. Was there any other topics you wanted to go over before we wrap things up?
No, I think we pretty much covered them all.
All right, cool. So yeah, that was episode 11. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back next week.